what if, like, way, way in the future, intelligence, maybe us, maybe AI, I don't know, could actually engineer the cosmos? I mean, literally reshape planetary systems, maybe even design the stars themselves.
It sounds like pure science fiction, doesn't it? But we've been digging into some source material that explores exactly that. They call it stellar architecture.
Stellar architecture, okay.
Yeah, it's basically the hypothetical science and, the engineering of stars and whole systems, cosmic scale stuff.
Right. Okay, so let's unpack this material then.
Yeah.
We've got sources here that really dig into the physics, the theoretical tech behind this idea, treating stars and planets not just as, like, things out there, but as actual building blocks.
Exactly. And that's the mission for this deep dive, really.
Which is?
To pull out the core ideas from these sources, we need to explore the sheer scale of it first off. Then look at the proposed methods, how you might theoretically do it, and then grapple with the implications, which are, well, pretty profound.
Okay, let's start with the scale. Because, yeah, it's almost impossible to wrap your head around. Modifying a star.
It really is the ultimate engineering challenge, isn't it? I mean, think about our own sun. It's got, what, 99.8% of all the mass in our solar system?
Right, almost everything.
And the core is burning at 15 million Kelvin. The gravity just dominates everything. You're not just tinkering here. You're messing with fundamental forces, mass, energy, at their absolute extreme.
And yet, the sources show, and this is what's fascinating, that scientists, astrophysicists, they've actually thought about this. They've proposed ways, based on real physics, you might even start.
That's right. They haven't just dismissed it as fantasy. And the sources really highlight one foundational concept to kick things off: star lifting.
Star lifting. Okay, the name kind of suggests you're just lifting stuff off the star.
Pretty much, yeah. It's the idea of removing mass from a star, but in a controlled fashion.
How?
Well, one of the early thinkers on this was Dr. David Criswell back in 1985. He imagined things like giant magnetic nozzles.
Magnetic nozzles near the sun.
Hypothetically, yeah. Positioned to sort of funnel streams of solar plasma, that solar hot gas the sun's made of, funnel it away, maybe into orbit for collection or, well, for various uses.
Wow. Redirecting solar plasma with magnetic fields, that gives you a sense of the kind of tech involved. And the sources give reasons why anyone would even attempt something that ambitious.
Oh, yeah. They lay out a few key drivers. One big one is extending the star's life.
Wow, by taking away its fuel.
Exactly. Remove some hydrogen, slow down the fusion rate. Or you could harvest that material, hydrogen, helium maybe, as fuel for massive construction projects. Think Dyson swarms.
Okay.
And then there's the more speculative idea of tailoring the star's output, creating specific light levels for some kind of engineered system. The sources really frame it as a first step, like the basics of stellar sculpting.
Okay, so star lifting is about interacting with the star's mass directly. But the sources don't stop there, do they? Once you can do that, the ideas seem to expand to the whole system.
Right, exactly. You shift from just tweaking the star to organizing the whole neighborhood around it. And that naturally brings up Freeman Dyson's big idea from 1960.
The Dyson sphere, that giant shell around a star catching all the energy.
That's the classic image, yeah. And it's one possibility, but the source material we looked at, drawing from Dyson himself, often focuses more on the idea of a Dyson swarm.
A swarm, so not a solid shell.
No, more like billions, maybe trillions of independent collectors or habitats, all orbiting the star in this dense cloud, but essentially doing the same job, capturing most, maybe all of the star's energy.
And these swarms, they're not just giant solar farms in space. The material suggests they could be more active.
That's a key point in the sources, yes. It's not just passive collection. These structures could become like this huge, versatile infrastructure.
How so?
Well, they could act as planetary repositioners, maybe using gravity or light pressure. They could balance radiation levels across the system, or even act as orbital sculptors. It's like building a massive, adaptable control grid around the star.
That makes me think immediately the Kardashev scale. Civilizations based on energy use.
Definitely. Type 2 on Kardashev's scale is a civilization using its entire star's energy output.
Right.
And building something like a Dyson swarm is often presented in the sources as, a plausible pathway or maybe an early sign of reaching that Type 2 level.
So, okay, imagine you're this Type 2 civilization. You've got this swarm infrastructure.
Yeah.
What kind of crazy stuff could you actually do with the planets, according to these sources?
Well, the possibilities they outline are just staggering. You could literally move planets.
Move them where?
Closer to the star, further away, put them in perfect habitable zones. You could stabilize orbits that might otherwise go chaotic over millions of years.
Wow.
The sources even talk about adding huge artificial planetary rings for things like climate control, or creating entirely new orbital layouts, maybe optimized for multiple biospheres or habitats.
But moving a whole planet,
Oh,
how? I mean, the energy required must be astronomical. You'd need engines the size of moons, wouldn't you?
well, not necessarily with brute force. One method that comes up is gravitational tractors.
Gravitational track.
Yeah, James Benford explored this, building on ideas from others like Landis. It's not about pushing the planet directly.
Oh, yeah.
Instead, you'd position a really massive object, a huge construct, near the planet, but not touching it. And you just use its gravity.
It's its own gravity.
Yep, that subtle, constant Newtonian pull over thousands, maybe millions of years. That tiny, persistent tug can actually shift a planet's entire orbit. It's slow, incredibly slow.
Millennia.
Exactly, it's patient engineering. That timescale is really key in the source material. It's not like warp drives in sci-fi.
That really drives home the architecture idea. It's long-term shaping. Okay, so we've lifted mass off the star. We've rearranged the planets. Let's go back to the star itself. The idea of modifying its core, its actual nature.
Yes, this is maybe the most mind-bending part, actively changing how the star works.
What are the control points? What could you theoretically fiddle with?
The sources discuss things like manipulating the star's magnetic field, which is incredibly powerful, or maybe tweaking the fusion rate in the core itself, even potentially altering the mix of elements inside the star.
And if you could do that, what are the big potential outcomes they describe?
Oh, they're huge. You could theoretically turn a star like our sun into a red dwarf.
A red dwarf, why?
Because they burn so slowly. You could extend its useful life for maybe trillions of years, perfect for a really long-lasting civilization.
Or the opposite.
Or the opposite. If you needed a massive burst of energy for some project, maybe you could accelerate it, turn it into a blue giant for a short, intense period. They even speculate about triggering specific fusion stages, like making it start burning helium, maybe for experiments or simulations.
You mentioned inducing magnetic fields earlier, maybe with cables. How would that work?
Right. The sources discuss proposals like orbiting superconducting cables. Badescu explored this in 2001.
Superconducting cables,
Yeah.
orbiting a star.
Theoretically, superconductors have no resistance, so you could run immense currents through them, generating magnetic fields vastly stronger than anything we can make now. Strong enough, the material suggests, to maybe interact with the star's plasma, steer flares, or influence convection currents inside.
Okay, and this stellar throttling idea, turning the star up or down like a dimmer switch.
Yeah, it sounds crazy, right? But the idea sort of draws a parallel from nature. We see binary systems where a black hole or neutron star pulls matter off a companion star.
Right, mass transfer.
Exactly. So the theory, if you extrapolate, is that a super advanced civilization might engineer ways, maybe using immense gravitational fields, maybe magnetic containment on a stellar scale, to control how matter flows onto or maybe away from the star's core.
And by controlling that flow.
You control the fuel supply for fusion, so in theory, you could throttle the star's energy output. Turn it up, turn it down.
So a Type 2 or maybe even Type 3 civilization, they wouldn't just use stars, they'd treat them almost like furnaces you can control.
That's basically the implication in some of the material, yeah. Tweaking the output, managing the fuel, maybe even breaking down old stars and recycling the material to build new ones.
Recycling stars.
At that point, you're not just cosmic tenants. You're becoming architects of thermonuclear fusion itself, potentially on a galactic scale.
Okay, wow. Treating stars like furnaces, planets like furniture. This stuff goes way beyond just technology, doesn't it? The sources seem to shift gears pretty quickly from the how to the why and the should we.
Absolutely. You can't talk about reshaping stars and systems without immediately bumping into huge philosophical questions. Well, should we do this? What are the risks? Not just, technical failure, blowing something up, but what about accidentally destabilizing a whole system? Or maybe harming potential life we don't even know about?
Or is it just cosmic hubris?
Or is it cosmic art? Is it our ultimate creative act? Or is it galactic colonization taken to its absolute extreme? These questions come up directly in the source material.
It feels a lot like the debates we have now about geoengineering Earth, but just blown up to an unimaginable scale.
That's the exact parallel the sources make, and it raises that uncomfortable question. If stars just become tools, infrastructure, do we lose something? Do we lose that sense of awe of reverence for the natural cosmos? Does the night sky stop being wondrous and just become a project?
That's a heavy thought. But there's a counter argument presented too, isn't there?
There is. The flip side, also in the sources, is this idea that maybe this is what intelligent life is ultimately for. Maybe it represents the universe itself through us or whatever comes after, sort of waking up.
Waking up.
Yeah, becoming self-aware and capable of shaping its own environment. In that view, taking creative responsibility for the cosmos, even shaping stars, isn't arrogance. Maybe it's intelligence, fulfilling its potential to interact with reality at the deepest level.
So stellar architecture isn't just engineering. It's tangled up with aesthetics, with ethics, with legacy, with what it means to be intelligent in this universe.
Pretty much. What's striking is how discussing these incredibly advanced hypothetical technologies forces us right back to some very fundamental questions about our own place and purpose.
So we've gone on quite the journey here, looking at these source materials, from starlifting pulling plasma off a star,
Right.
to rearranging entire planetary systems, maybe with Dyson swarms or those slow-moving gravitational tractors,
The linear-long projects.
all the way to actually modifying the star's core,
Yeah.
maybe turning it into a different type of star,
Yeah.
creating artificial constellations. It's mind-boggling stuff.
It absolutely is. And while it's deeply speculative, far, far future thinking, the sources do try to ground it where possible in known physics and theoretical engineering principles. It's not just magic.
The implications, though,
Yeah.
technically, philosophically, they're just immense.
They really are. They challenge how we even think about the universe and what our role in it could possibly become over, well, cosmic time.
And the material leaves us with this really powerful final thought to chew on, doesn't it?
It does.
For all of human history, the stars shaped us. They were guides, myths, the edge of everything we knew. But if any of this ever becomes possible, way down the line,
Then we might be the ones shaping them.
potentially turning the lights in our sky into deliberate creations, sculptures of our own design.